Herzlich willkommen bei Digitale Optimisten. Ich bin Alex und ich spreche in diesem Podcast mit der nächsten Generation an Gründern, die mit ihren Ideen die Zukunft verändern wollen. Genau wie Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg oder Jeff Bezos vor ihnen. Ich habe in letzter Zeit viele E-Mails bekommen an alexander@digitaleoptimisten.de, die mich gefragt haben, ob ich ab und zu auch mal ein Update machen kann, und zwar mit den Gründern, die ich in der Vergangenheit interviewt habe. In der letzten Folge habe ich zum ersten Mal so einen Check-in gemacht, nämlich mit Hannah, die erzählt hat, dass sie weiterhin trotz Corona-Krise großes Potenzial für ihr Geschäftsmodell sieht. Heute mache ich wieder einen Check-in, diesmal mit Tom Sun, der in Folge 7 zu Gast war. Er wiederum hat sein Geschäftsmodell aufgrund der Krise radikal verändert, auch bekannt als ein Pivot. Toms ursprüngliche Idee lautete so: Es ist verdammt schwer für Fahrer von Elektroautos, zuverlässige Ladesäulen zu finden, um das Auto aufzuladen. Deshalb hat er das Airbnb für das Aufladen von Elektroautos aufgebaut. Privatpersonen vermieten ihre unbenutzten Ladestellen an Leute, die sie gerade brauchen. Das hat auch alles super funktioniert, leider nur bis zur Corona-Krise. In der musste er blitzschnell umschalten und sein Geschäftsmodell völlig verändern. Was er jetzt macht und wie so ein Pivot abläuft, vor allem wie man die Investoren bei Laune hält und Mitarbeiter weiter beschäftigt, hörst du in dieser Folge von Digitale Optimisten. Ich freue mich, dass auch diese Folge von Brain Effect gesponsert wird. Brain Effect ist Europas Nummer 1 Shop für Performance Food. Vielleicht fragst du dich, was Performance Food ist. Performance Food kann dir zum Beispiel dabei helfen, dass du dich besser konzentrieren kannst und nicht so schnell abgelenkt bist. Eines der beliebtesten Produkte sind die sogenannten Focus-Kapseln. Die haben kein Koffein, sind 100% vegan und haben über 100 positive Bewertungen im Online-Shop auf brain-effekt.com. Dazu kriegst du sogar noch einen digitalen Focus-Coach, der dir Tipps gibt, wie du viel erledigen kannst, ohne immer wieder Instagram zu checken. Schau es dir mal an. Du findest den Link zu Brain Effect in den Shownotes und erhältst mit dem Gutscheincode Optimisten20 einen 20% Rabatt auf deinen Einkauf. So viel von mir. Jetzt geht's los mit Tom Sun, Gründer und CEO von AmpUp. Tom, it's wonderful to have you back on. You were one of my first guests on the podcast, and the episode now is one of the most popular ones on this show. So, how are you, Tom?
Hi, Alex. I'm good, and it's really great to be back. And thank you for inviting me back. And yeah, I really enjoyed my first experience talking with you. And how are you?
I think I'm good, but if you consider the time that has passed since we first talked in 2019, you can hardly think of a more crazy way that, the world kind of descended into a different direction. I mean, what happened since then we're going to talk about the big picture, but what happened since we talked to AmpUp?
Yeah, so it definitely felt like a century has passed. But since we talked, uh, if you recall, we were launched out of YC as a peer-to-peer electric vehicle charging company. And since then, we were actually able to become the world's largest and fastest growing peer-to-peer electric vehicle charging network. We achieved over 2,100 hosted private chargers right before COVID, and in
Wow.
over 20 different countries. But COVID hit, and we actually foresaw a need to pivot a little bit even before COVID, because even with all that growth in the peer-to-peer side, we had some data that still indicated to us that people preferred to charge their car at not only convenient locations, but also uh, locations that feels safe to them. So basically, well lit and in open parking area. So uh, what uh, our pivot basically is, shifting into more getting on board more of the private charters from workplaces and multi-unit dwellings and university campuses, because those charters are on paper private, but they're essentially in public locations. And if we are able to build a solution that converts them into pure public charging stations, at least on part of the time, then that's beneficial for the host, for additional revenue, and also much more beneficial to the general EV community. So that's basically where we decided to uh, do the pivot. We're still simultaneously running the peer-to-peer network, and but once COVID hit, the growth on there definitely slowed down. Yeah, it slowed down drastically. Basically, we used to have maybe about 20 new hosts every week, and now it's dropped to about uh, two or three, and all of the two or three, uh, almost all of them, they would give the information on their home charter or private charter, but they would have it as a offline mode, which is a feature that we introduced as part of COVID, so people can actually turn them off, turn the sharing off, to ensure that they practice the recommended social distancing. Uh, yeah, but our main focus right now is more on the B2B side. So providing a more comprehensive EV charging management solution for commercial spaces. So like workplaces, multi-unit dwelling, university campuses, and fleet. Uh, so by comprehensive, I mean like an actual charging solution that controls the hardware, remotely turns it on, turns it off, and even does some sort of load management, and access control for different users, and also taking in payments. So that's where we pivoted into, and also we have gotten some strategic investments since we talked. Um, so Hyundai came in as a strategic investor, and also SAIC, which is the largest automaker in China. Uh, they both came in as strategic investors, and currently we have onboarded more hardware partners. So I think we're the largest probably in the industry with the number of hardware that our software works on. So our software is kind of like the Android in the EV charging space, where we're hardware agnostic. And right now we are basically, after COVID, we're more focused on building our software product and just leveraging the sales team in our hardware partners to expand, and that's been proving uh, to be the right decision so far. Yep.
Okay, wow. So you did pivot from the model that we discussed before. Maybe we can dive into the decision to pivot a little bit. You mentioned that you had some data points to inform such a big decision. What kind of data points were that especially? So what
Yeah.
made you, take that big decision to kind of deprioritize the peer-to-peer solution and go more towards a, you know, um, well, software management system of big electric vehicle charging facilities?
Yeah. So I can connect the dots from all the way from the beginning. So when we were launching as peer-to-peer network, we actually did a market survey on over 200 EV drivers. And the survey basically asked people simple questions like, uh, how willing are you to share your home or private charger to the general public? And how willing are you to go to a stranger's house to charge your car? And and uh, the survey came back saying let about 43% are willing to share their home charger, and nearly 70% are willing to go to a stranger's place to charge. Uh, that was uh, that aligned with our expectation a bit, because when we talk to people one on one, they all express the security concern when people come to their own home. So we thought that the challenge of the marketplace was going to be on the supply side. So we focused building the supply side of the market, and we hoped the demand side will rise naturally when there are a lot of peer-to-peer charter hosted. And in reality, uh, it's kind of the opposite. So we had a very easy time onboarding, hosts. The reality is that a lot of people have this security concern, uh, but they still chose to share their charters because of the feature that we had that allowed them to set a sharing schedule, where if they did have the security concern, they share the charter at times that they are comfortable with or they're at home. So we had almost 90% conversion rate to get people to become hosts on our platform. On the contrary, we haven't seen a lot of activity from the demand side, and we started just interviewing random EV chargers. We try to look for EV chargers without home charging and ask them, hey, there are the Ampub is this platform with a lot of peer-to-peer private chargers that you can go and charge. Would you give this a try? And if not, why not? And that's when we collected more of the qualitative uh, responses saying that uh, oh, I the security is actually the same security concern. It's actually more on the driver side. So they actually really prefer leaving their car in a more you know open area, well lit area, and especially they prefer there are amenities around that charter. So like coffee shops, and beverage, and also maybe a store or a gym. So that's when, when we start realizing, hey, we we really need to, and then we went back to the data that we had. So at that point, and still today, our uh, all of our peer-to-peer hosts is over 95% private home charters, and there are a few charters that are being shared from workplaces, and 80% of the activities actually happen on these workplace shared charters. So that's basically a very strong indicator telling us, hey, we should onboard more of these quote unquote high quality charters, meaning they are physically accessible all the time, and also they are in a typically well lit area because they're in the workplace parking lots. And typically around workplaces there are coffee shops at least to a minimum, sometimes even restaurants within walking distance. So we started focusing trying to onboard more of these, and then when we started talking to these uh, users or customers, they told us they need a more they love the idea to be able to share their charter to other people and get additional revenue, but they actually need a more comprehensive solution where uh, like dedicated usage to their core members, like either employees or tenants, are insured through software. So, during maybe work hours, only the employees can use it. And then, because the primary reason these charters are installed are for the employees. So they don't want that benefit to be taken away when they share it to the general public. uh, so that's one, and then they also wanted so that's when we started talking to more of them, and then getting from a product manager perspective, getting an idea on what the first version of that management tool looks like. So they want payments, access control, load management. uh, on the payment side, people actually come up with a lot of really creative ideas on how to charge people. Some people give like free first hour charging, and then it's tiered from there. Some people wants to charge for time total, for a parking fee, and also per kilowatt hour for the energy. Uh, And some people wants to charge a flat monthly fee. Like for a lot of multi-unit dwellings, they rather charge a flat monthly membership fee that goes as part of the monthly rent. A lot of creativity going on around there. That's also when we start realizing, along with some more general data, that the refueling behavior of EV owners is really very different from uh, you know gas cars. For gas cars, you make a dedicated trip to a gas station to fill it from near zero to full. But for EV owners, that's very different. They don't do that anymore. So for EV owners like myself, which I also start to realize, is the average charging session duration is actually less than 2 hours. So what that means is that people are doing what's called destination-based charging. So they no longer, they will never actually try to charge in from near zero to full. What happens is that they will incorporate refueling into their lifestyle. So they charge a bit here, charge a bit there, like that. So that's why destination-based charging is there's a huge gap there, because the charging solutions currently available in the market, they only do infrastructure management very well. So making sure the hardware is healthy, is online, is heart beating, is actually outputting power, but it doesn't give a lot of control and options to the site host, which wants to maybe promote their business by giving free charging or a discount on the purchase at the store, uh, or creative pricing, and also creative access control, those kind of
Mhm.
things. So that's where we thought, hey, there's an actual opportunity for us to come in and fill the gap.
Mhm. And I remember from our first conversation that we talked about this two sided market that poses a challenge for any company that tries to win a two sided market. But what that pivot does is it kind of resolves this two sided market, and you just focus on one market, which is the pools of EV charging, those suppliers of EV charge, maybe in a in a company or in a restaurant or a mall that actually need some way to run their software and manage the this charging.
Yep.
But what consequence does this have on your company? Because that is quite a big of a pivot, and I could imagine that your tech stack might change. You might need different requirements and different skills of your programmers. How did your team change?
Our team, believe it or not, did not change, and that's actually
Wow.
one of the best things uh, that in my experience so far. Because one thing I realized is how fortunate it is to have a team that not only stays during hard times, during pivots, but a team that can adapt to different needs. So our software team, actually, they picked up on firmware skills. They picked up on uh, you know like open protocol skills, and started reading a lot of documentations on uh, you know different things like PCI compliance, CCPA compliance, UL testing, and those kind of things. So just really proud of the team that I have.
Yeah, well, you got some talented engineers there, I imagine. So that's really extraordinary. But with your pivot, I mean, you now profit from people driving somewhere and charging in their kind of always on charging mode, as
Mhm.
opposed to this, gasoline filling up the tank once in a month. But now people are not going places
Correct.
that much, right? They're not traveling that much. So, do you still see a big demand for this solution? For example, are employers now using the time to get ready for when everything kind of clears up again, and they want to update their software on their EV charging parks, or is it the other way around?
That's a very good question. So so if I can break the market apart a little bit, uh, so one statistics is that still over 80% of charging happens either at home or at work. So for multi-unit dwelling space, the demand is still there. So people are still driving around. They're just not driving to work, uh, and they still need to charge. So that's one. And also another huge space is fleet. So fleet is actually going to be the biggest driver in EV adoption. uh, you know, with COVID, the last mile delivery and just delivery in general really picked up, and a lot of the fleet managers are starting to look at the economic benefit to switching their gas fleet into EV fleet. And it's actually a very complicated problem. So besides offering like a EV charging solution, sometimes we are starting to be like almost like consultants, helping them look at their data and helping them decide uh, if they are at a scale where electrifying their fleet is beneficial for them, and if it is, how can we help them to do that? So, where do we install the EV chargers for them, and how do we assign the job vehicle driver to minimize the overall energy expenditure? And so, besides these two areas that are, the multi-unit dwelling demand staying the same and the fleet picking up, the third one is government grants. So the government, is still very encouraging, despite the federal level, is still very encouraging, sustainability projects. So there are still a lot of utility grants, government grants that are uh, promoting these kind of projects. So enabling workplaces for EV charging, enabling multi-unit dwelling. So we have an internal team that goes after these government grants, and for general sales, we currently just leverage our hardware partners, Rockstar sales team.
I
Yeah.
have to congratulate you on the new strategic investors. That sounds like some big names that you got on board. And you also mentioned, some changes that the coronavirus pandemic brought with it. But what kind of advice did you receive from your investors, but also mentors and parents, during the crisis? I mean, they must be. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone on the startup scene is kind of thinking, oh, where is this going? Can we, sustain demand? So, what kind of advice did you receive, and how did you act on it?
Yeah. So the advice I got from investors and mentors are very consistent. So they said they've been through similar, not the same, definitely similar situations before, and the right thing to do always is to focus on R&D and pull back on the sales. So, and we follow exactly that. So trying our best to extend our runway to make sure we can survive 18 months or more. Uh, and basically focus our effort on R&D. And from family, family is mostly on on a personal level, telling me to uh, really try to be careful, be careful, practice social distancing, always wash my hands, and then always wear a mask.
I mean, that's kind of a luxury thing to do, right? To focus on R&D and forget about sales in a time where,
Yeah.
sales might be dropping. So that I reckon that you are very well funded and you have a runway that allows this luxury for you.
Yes, we're well funded. And the one thing is actually our strategy to rely on our hardware partners for sales uh, is actually effective, because as as hard as we're pulling back from sales, uh, about 60% of my time are still spent on doing sales demos. And also we have been able to sell and deploy during the pandemic. So another thing that really took a lot of my time was to iron out a automated or smooth deployment process with our hardware partners. So how do we make sure the hardwares are shipped and they're ready to install and operate with the AmpUp software on it, with the AmpUp QR code, and everything to work smoothly. So there's as little thing to worry about for the end customer as possible.
Hmm. Understood. And that means so a little bit, I mean, quite some things changed for you as, during the crisis and also as a consequence of the pivot that you did. But what consequences did you take as a leader, as a CEO? I mean, did you have to lean in more on the team building side? And did you have to, I mean, some people, employees, can be scared, right? Can be lonely, or maybe ask what's going to happen with my startup. Are we going to survive? So, what happened during the time on your with your leadership skills?
I would like to think I always improve, but I really don't know. Uh, so like you said, there were some hard decisions that I had to make, both letting some folks go and also asking the remaining team to take over 30% pay cut, just to make sure we have a very long runway, that we ensure we survive this. I told the team that this this is a terrible thing that's happening, but if we're able to tough through this, we don't have to all compete our competitors. Some of the competitors might just be wiped away because they're not disciplined with cash management, uh,
Mhm.
and just I guess talk more frequently with with the team, give them more frequent updates, uh, keeping them motivated. I'm not sure if I'm actually doing a good enough job on that. I definitely try, uh, but the remaining team, they are. I think I'm just more like I'm lucky to have a team that's really staying, and they're actually working harder with a 30% pay cut. So
Wow. Yeah, that's some big decisions, and I mean, a great team that is able to, sustain a level of enthusiasm during such a crisis. And what I always think is there were a bunch of companies that really got started during crises. I think Google really scaled up during the after the dot com bubble burst in 2000 2001. Airbnb, I think, was founded during the financial crises. So there's many examples of companies that did what you just described, of taking the opportunity, being conservative, and then as the market picks up again, which at some point, or I mean, the stock market already did, but when it comes to consumer sentiment, will do at some point, are there and can capitalize on the new situation. So how, I mean, we talked a lot about the business side, but how was it personally for you to live in Silicon Valley during the pandemic?
yeah, personally, I definitely miss going to different restaurants. Uh, uh, I always love food, even though I can, stay in a cave for a long time. But I enjoy different food, and it's really sad to see some of these restaurants close.
Mhm.
And also another thing, COVID didn't really affect me directly. I didn't catch COVID, but a lot of the side effects sort of affected me. So I'm a Asian American, and we're taking an extra hit on with this COVID thing. You know, people are reacting. A lot of this is actually more through the news and stories I hear. A lot of Asian Americans are experiencing racism, and sometimes that could even get violent. Uh, I've never experienced this myself, but I got really worried about my parents. They're in the Midwest, they're in Illinois. So I call them more often to make sure that they're all safe, and if needed, I can fly back and try to work remotely with just taking care of my parents. So I was
Mhm.
really worried about my parents. They are sort of getting the double negative. One, COVID is more effective on older people. Two, all the side effects with all the anxiety from other people that and the resulting racism that could affect them. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's horrible to hear. I'm really sorry about that. I can tell you from a European perspective, there were reports. So wait, I have to back up a little bit because regions in or countries in Europe were not equally affected by COVID-19. France, for example, was hit way harder than Germany, and as a consequence, borders went up again between France and Germany, which have been disabled for years and years now, and with the European Union. But there were reports on anti-French sentiment in the southwest of Germany. So people being scared and developing and dropping into these old patterns of being of xenophobia in the end,
Yeah,
after all this process of growing together as Europeans. So it kind of shows that when push comes to shove, I think the sometimes the deep some stereotypes deep down, or some mean sentiments take over a lot of people. So yeah, I think that crisis showed that in parts as well. And I'm sorry to hear that your parents were are afraid of that, or affected by it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would like to think that just like you said, it's more of a people falling on stereotyping. So I wouldn't really consider this racism. I think in today's cancel culture, we put extreme labels a little too easily. So I think yeah, this stereotyping is definitely not good, but it's only natural that people do this. So
Hmm. Okay. Well, I have one final question for you, Tom. So we talked a couple months ago, and the wonderful thing about my conversations with founders like you is that the road ahead is still unclear. So now, with a couple more months of experience in your back pocket, what is the thing that you did not know at the time of our conversation but learned since then? And how do you apply it to your future path of being a CEO of your own startup?
yeah, so I definitely learn quite a bit almost every day or every week. A lot of on the smaller things, like boilerplate, uh, legal things, tax things. I learned that not all investors like the safe note invented by YC, which was understandable, and how to bundle. I should have bundled my many angel investors into SPV. So little things like this, but something that's maybe more generally applicable to the future is, um, you know, I think I improved in negotiation skills a bit. When we started selling our B2B solution, we were really getting bullied on the pricing side. So, people would ask us for uh, a third of the price uh, against even the cheapest competitor in the market. While we're offering probably the best product. So I think that negotiation skill is something that's definitely going to be beneficial, and I'm going to continue to improve on that.
Sounds great. Well, Tom, thank you for, being part of this revisiting series of what I think are the most interesting stories that founders told on the podcast so far, and come back and tell me and the audience what they learned so far. So thank you very much for being part, and maybe we're going to see each other for part 3 at some point. But until then, I wish you all the best and stay strong during the remainder of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Alex. And I definitely hope and look forward to part 3. And please stay safe and take care and enjoy your more time with your son.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom. See you soon.
Yep. See you soon.